Bom dia, god morgon, good morning. I'm Jonas Lindström, the Managing Director here at the Swedish Chamber of Commerce. So welcome to all of you who are here in the room. Welcome to those of you who are watching live, and welcome for those of you who will watch this later. We will have this video on our YouTube channel. So, Carnival is over. The country can start. That's what they say in Brazil. Because January is vacation period, then you always wait for the Carnival, and after Carnival, then we can start planning. So finally the year has started. In fact, Carnival was later this year, so February was a normal month. So we did have some events in February too. And actually the 3 events in February were related to artificial intelligence. It's something that the members have asked for, and my board of directors is asking for it. So we are working with artificial intelligence. In February, we had the event at Atlas Copco about artificial intelligence and human resources. We had an event with Tetra Pak about artificial intelligence for communication and marketing. We had an event here with SKF about artificial intelligence in production in the factory. Excellent events, fantastic messages. We will continue working with AI. We will work with the robots, but not for them. I think there is still something out there called human intelligence. And I think the presentation today will be more focused on human intelligence than on artificial intelligence. And that's why we are here. That's why we as a Chamber of Commerce still exist. We like to see people together. This is a place, we have had this office for many years now. This has been a meeting point before the technological boom. Everything, of course, was in real life. Now we have the competition of online, but we will continue promoting physical events. So very happy to have you all. I think that you who are here agree with me. Otherwise, you would not have crossed São Paulo to come to listen to first. You would have stayed at home watching on the screen, but you are here. So thank you for supporting physical events, physical meetings, handshakes, a coffee. You might even get a hug today. I think very, very important in today's reality. So David is here, our speaker. Bergknut, sorry, right? Yeah. Bergknut Wallensteen is here to talk about the path to high impact leadership in a Swedish organization, elevate, influence, and thrive. Thank you so much, David, for being in São Paulo. And so the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jonas. Thank you. It's an honor. It's so fun to be here with you today. So let's see. You will learn something new. At least that's my aspiration. That we'll get some new insights, some new learnings that will be with you from today. But let's see. I know it's a very knowledgeable team sitting in this room when it comes to leadership. So the knowledge is here. We'll do a short introduction of who I am or what I worked with over the years. I'll check in what your expectations today, and then we'll come to the 10 content of the talk and the conversation today. We'll look at what is Swedish leadership. You know, do we have anything actually Swedish leadership, or what is the kind of traits of Swedish leadership? We spoke earlier this morning with some of you about the amount of Swedish companies that are so innovative in the forefront, and with such a small country in comparison to the globe. But we have a lot of high impact companies. I think, Jonas, your member stock shows how many impressive companies that we have coming from small Sweden. So something we're doing that is right, and I think part of this is the leadership. But I would like to start off today with your expectations. Why did you come here physically? Of course, you want to have coffee and you want to have foundation, but I think it's more than that, because that you can get almost everywhere here in São Paulo. So, why did you show up today? What's your expectations of the seminar today?
Interaction, exchange of best practices.
Interaction. I'm slightly dyslexic, so when I write, it's not perfect. Interaction is that what more?
Of exchange. Best practices.
Exchange.
Best practices.
Okay, interaction, exchange of best practice.
Also to understand like cultural applicability.
Cultural applicability, to understand. Yes. What else?
Personal experiences.
Personal experience, okay. What else?
Growth. For us to grow.
Growth, yeah, growth.
The Swedish experience.
Swedish experience. Anything else you want to compliment that you came here with your? That's why I'm here today. This is why I get out to this seminar, so that I can cover it. Much, switch and change in my presentation if there's something else that you really want to zoom in on. I might have it covered.
Maybe failures and success stories.
Okay. I focus on success stories.
No failures.
I'll cover a bit. Focus more successes. Okay. Should we give that now? So let's see if I can cover these topics or expectations with you. Okay. So briefly about my professional background. I've actually been working with human resource management for like 7 years now. And I was happy to see that 3 of the companies I work for are gold members of the Chamber of Commerce. So maybe I spent quite a lot of time in healthcare business as well, both for the Karolinska Institute, which is one of the biggest medical universities in Sweden. I worked as HR manager for Stockholm Sjukhus. It's a small non-profit in Stockholm. And I worked a few years also for the Karolinska University Hospital. I'll come back to that example. Last couple of years, mainly in a leadership role, leadership position. So I've done most things within the human resource management. I think my passion, what's really driving me, is to see people grow and develop, and also to see organizations grow and develop and be successful. That's my why I so much like to do what I'm doing right now. That's briefly. And I've mainly been based in Sweden, working or for the Red Cross for the Federation. I've also worked in Geneva a couple of years. And I've also been local employed at embassies, both in Brasilia before, and also in Ethiopia. Otherwise, focus or the seeking and so on, most of the times. And please, interrupt me if you have questions or reflections you want to share. We'll still have some space for that in today's session. So please interrupt if you have questions. And I think you must speak about artificial intelligence. And one tool here is that I use translation from English to Portuguese, which is very helpful. And that's also artificial intelligence. So it's really coming in our day-to-day way of working. I use also lots of ChatGPT today. When I want to write things and I want to get input, you can't really trust them all the time, artificial intelligence tools, but it's really helpful. And I think this kind of translation is really good. It's not perfect, but if you have an audience that are not perfectly fine all the time, in English, if it's a good support. So what I'm actually experimenting the most with actually today, this comes from my own frustration as being an accompanying spouse, moving around the world. So I do career coaching for global spouses. That's actually I do the most part of my time today. And that comes from my own frustration that the Swedish Minister of Foreign Affairs are quite poor of giving us support, looking at holistic perspective of sending people abroad. Some countries are much better than we are. So this is an experiment I'm running right now. So I have people from Mozambique to San Francisco that I coach right now. So I do both group coaching and I do individual one-on-one coaching.
Sorry, can I ask, the Global Spouse Career is a company?
This is my company.
Is your
It's
company?
my company.
Okay,
So
okay.
this is my small experiment
Nice.
that I'm running.
Okay, cool.
So I have a collaboration also contract with Swedes abroad, Svenska i världen.
Okay.
So they have a spouse program that I also coach. So coming into kind of the topic, the essence of today. This is a definition, one definition of how we could view what is high impact leadership. So high impact leadership here in the context that you really inspire and empower the teams and the people around you, that you are able to drive strategies for the organization that you are running or partly responsible for, that you actually propel and move the organizations forward, and not the least that you have a positive influence on the culture of an organization. I think that's something that's changing more and more, that you run an actual organization by culture. Especially when you work more in the hybrid context, the culture and how you run the culture is super important for organizations. So this definition is five points that we look at. Is to have a clear vision and values. So are you able to communicate? Are you able to have the same vision that is shared and clear for the people in the organization that you run? Are you solid on the values? Do you walk the talk in that perspective on the values that you have in the organization? Effective communication. How is your interaction with the stakeholders that you have? The main stakeholders that you want to meet. Are you a good listener? That's a really important part of communication. And are you able to create a culture of openness and a good dialogue? Empowerment and motivation is are you able to build the trust in the organization, to delegate a lot of the responsibilities and to drive in the organization. The other area of adaptability, and I think the pandemic that we all went through was a clear challenge for a lot of organizations. Were they able to manage completely change work environments for many of us? I had worked like 2 months in Ericsson in a global role when the pandemic hit. And we were 80,000 people going back working from home. 80,000 people for more than 2 years. So it is possible, but you really need to invest in making and taking the opportunity when things change. How you will do it, how you will be able to maintain productivity, the force of innovation in these kinds of companies. And of course, you need to drive results. You need to, need the basic existence of your organization. And if you're a hospital or if you are a Tetra Pak or Ericsson, it depends. What is the result? Sometimes it's the funding, the money, but it's also the impact of what you do. In the hospital, it's the number of patients that you can treat and the quality of the treatment that's important. So it depends. So what's your view? I know a few of you have experience from leadership or are working with leadership topics. Are you missing anything? Anything else that you would like to add when you talk and when you think about high impact leadership?
I would suggest the word diversity.
Diversity.
Yeah, I think the more diverse the team is better for exercising leadership, right? Because we can complete each other. Whereas if people are all equal and only share the same values, I think for leaders, hard to inspire them. Like, a lot of the,
embracing diversity, right?
Yeah.
Somehow,
Yeah.
and
You're right.
inclusion, because it's not only about having diversity, but creating the atmosphere.
Environment.
Yeah, the environment.
I'm the board president of the American School in Brasilia. And very much but in a way challenged right now from the American perspective. But even before this time, we have already switched a bit from a school perspective to talk about belonging. It's less confrontative, but it's also the importance for school environment. But I'm a really strong believer in embodying diversity and inclusion. I've always had a passion for those topics. Not least, working for the Red Crescent movement in Geneva. Coming into the office in Geneva, we're like 60 different kind of nationalities in the same office. But it's so great because I think the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement have a very clear vision and mission and values. So it's so easy to come together, depending on where you come from. And you want to use the competence and skills of the people to drive change and impact on lives. So no, I really like diversity, the embody diversity. Anything else that you're missing? Who would like to add on?
Maybe also how to navigate effectively corporate tensions and conflicts.
Do you have conflicts?
Very rarely.
Never heard of.
Let's focus on the success stories.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Anything else? Move on.
The ability to listen. I mean, many leaders are just, it's my way or the highway. They have a hard time to listen to ideas from the company.
Listen to it. Yes. Could incorporate maybe that in effective communication. But it doesn't necessarily have to do it. No. Listening is super important as a leader. Whatever kind of organization you are leading.
I thought about sorry, can I add something? Thinking about creating a culture of growth mindset. Where people are not afraid to make errors and learn from mistakes.
I'm also a strong advocate of growth mindset.
Nice.
Very important. Absolutely. So, what does kind of Swedish leadership look like? I would say I will share for you in the room today. If you're interested, I will share all the slides with you that I will show you. And I will also have some additional slides, things that I don't think I will have time to cover, that might be helpful for you if you're more curious. So I'll share with you. So this is 4 areas that I picked up when it comes to also when I look at research on what is Swedish leadership. It's around egalitarian values. It's about consensus building. It's very much around trust and delegation. And it's a team first mentality. So actually, the most part today, I will dive into these 4 areas of what I have understood is so-called Swedish leadership. Roberta saw. Do you recognize?
Yes. Yep.
Do you think we're on track?
Yes. But also, I think that for the Brazilians, there are some clashes also in this cultural way of running a business. The consensus building is like drive all the Brazilians nuts. Because Brazilians, they need guidance in a way. So, and there is always a joke that, we're going to have a meeting to discuss what we will do in the next meeting. So I think that there is a need of a balance on this consensus.
Absolutely. And I think you need to balance it depending on where you are performing your leadership. And no, I'm exaggerating a little bit, focusing more, the Swedish way. But to be a leader in Brazil, even if you work in a Swedish company, you have to adjust with a different kind of power balance. That you are more hierarchical as you. You are more of the big father or the big mother in the organization. You have more power based on your role than you ever would have in a normal Swedish organization. You have to spend more time to get to know people. Sugarcoating. You have to do much more here in Brazil. So I would say that's two of the when I look at it, two of the biggest differences between Swedish and Brazilian leadership. That you need to work with your authority in a different way. So usually the Brazilian companies are a bit quicker if you have to navigate a crisis, for example. That's something I saw, especially when a crisis happened in the world, and you see the consensus thing in Sweden, quite slow. If I looked from the Red Cross perspective, or from the Swedish perspective, the crisis in Lebanon quite a few years back. And, the Italians, they are super good, sending out airplanes, getting people out. And Sweden are very slow before we're taking actions. In comparison, we're not slow, but in comparison, we're slow. So you have advantages and disadvantages depending on what kind of cultural leadership that you have in the country. So let's walk through these four areas. Of the first one is kind of egalitarian values, and it's really strong if you see it from a Swedish context. So the high degree equality and long-standing effort to reduce power differences. It is a cornerstone of the Swedish society, shaping a unique thing of what makes a good leader. And this is from the Swedish Stockholm School of Economics. And we tend to have quite flat hierarchies within Swedish organizations. Or they are, but they're not as visible as you would have in other organizations. And leaders more frequently see themselves as first among equals. So they have a role, but they don't want to have too big distance to the people in the team around. And it's always a focus on favor of teamwork and focusing on the individual performances. And also that managers are expected to be quite approachable, even in the hierarchical system. And I saw that when I worked, for example, for Tetrapack, we had the owner family, he had his office, and he was always approachable, even if he was on the rising family in his office. And also the CEO of Ericsson is also very approachable. Even if you run a company of 110,000 people, he's still approachable if you would meet up with him. And I think that's at least that's my experience working with many Swedish leaders, that they're quite approachable. I don't know what's your experiences working for Brazilian Swedish companies here in Brazil. Sure. So I'll share a story with you. You know who this guy is?
Yes.
Some of you know it. Some might not know.
He's been here in this room.
Yeah. He's been. Yeah. Good. His name is Stefan Löfven. He's the former Prime Minister of Sweden. And he's quite a humble guy. And he, just when he was about to leave as a Prime Minister, he had his last visit to New York to go to the General Assembly. And he'd been in UN and New York quite frequently. And as always, back-to-back meetings, quite busy schedule. And when he unpacked, he realized he had forgotten his cufflinks in Sweden. And he was going into meetings, and he didn't have the cufflinks. And this was overheard by the Secret Service team that was taking care of his personal security. So they realized, no, he's missing his cufflinks, not having any cufflinks, and hardly any time to go out and buy cufflinks. So the Secret Service agents collectively raised money by themselves and bought him a pair of Secret Service cufflinks. So it turned out it was the same team, Secret Service agents, that always volunteered to work for him and his team when he was in New York. All the time, the same people that volunteered to work for him. And they really liked him. They appreciated his humbleness. It was easy to deal with, easy to work with. It was quite predictable about his keeping his schedule. And always recognizing them for who they are, who they were, and the importance of their work. And it kind of small symbols, but it was quite impactful, I find it, the way how they manifested it. So they helped him out in this situation that he were in. So to acknowledge and see the positive stuff around, I think is very important. And I think this, for me, it goes to the egalitarian value perspective. Everyone is important. And I work a lot in hospitals. And people like cleaners in hospitals are super important. Super, super important that they really know to do their job and are given the tools and opportunity to do their job. Because we have so many more of diseases that are spread if you don't clean them. And that's how you see that. Everyone is important, but we have different roles and responsibilities. And to acknowledge that is very important. And it's also about creating commitment and engagement in the organization. That everyone is heard and seen. So the value of a leader to show genuine kindness and humbleness most often takes back. That's my experience. So what can you, from the egalitarian value perspective, what are the opportunities as a leader? And these are things that, questions that hopefully you can bring with you when you go back in your organization is about how approachable are you seen as leaders in the organization that you're at right now? How can you make sure to use the power of kindness within the organization that you're part of? And especially be kind to yourself. Because the most critical mind is our own mind. We're the most critical one of ourselves, in our performance. No one is as critical as we are ourselves. And it's an interesting book if you want to know more about the power of kindness. Unfortunately, I think it's only in Swedish. About a poet, Kindness Wins, by Bob Hansson. I was a bit skeptical when I started listening to the book, but it's really good. The power of kindness. The kindness person wins. Essentially, it's all based in actually science and research. This book and the things that we can say. Snällast vinner.
In the long run, maybe not at the moment.
No, but usually, if you look at senior leaders in a lot of organizations globally, they have a good way of being kind, but in a smart way. Genuinely kind, but in a smart way. They're not sacrificing themselves completely, but to be kind in a smart way. Usually are the people in the highest leadership positions in organizations. So also think, what's humbleness for you in your organization, your personality, and the people around you? And I think one thing is to celebrate good achievements within the organization, independent of what we're delivering. And that you also can take the advantage as leaders to facilitate. There are different kind of methodologies that you can use to get the real great input and ideas from the people in your team, without having to have the ideas attached to the individuals. Sometimes that hinders us, that we are listening or not listening depending on who says what. But that you can come around depending on how you facilitate. So, consensus building. What are the challenges sometimes in Swedish? Lagom way, perspective of leadership. And Swedish leadership culture really heavily relies on the consensus building. And it takes time. That's the challenge. It is a democratic approach where you want to have team members consulted, to have things discussed openly within the team, and different opinions considered. That takes. But the idea is that you will have better informed and more motivated teams. That's the idea behind it. But there were challenges in culture sometimes that we need to consider.
I think that the consensus is important because you give voice to people. So this is extremely important in Brazil. But Brazilians, they need guidance. So if you just leave them to give their opinion, but don't give like what to do next, usually it doesn't work.
That's true. But that's also, how can you work with those culture in companies and organizations? The last role I had before moving to Brazil, I had a global role in Ericsson. And I know that the team that set up our units in India, said it took 7 years to create the culture we wanted to have, the Ericsson culture in India. Because you need to have a hybrid connection, using the capacity of Indian culture, but do it in the Swedish way. So it's not a quick fix all the time. It takes time, and you need to consistently work on it to be able to make this change happen. So yeah, it's have pros and cons from this perspective. And have you heard, how many have heard of Karolinska University Hospital? Right.
I remember. It's never the team.
So I personally worked at the Karolinska University Hospital during the big change process as human resource manager. So I worked in 3 different themes or areas all the time. The last area was the trickiest one that they needed someone to step in. So I worked for the cancer theme. The last post. I don't know how much, what's, yeah?
I think in a way it depends on the Japanese culture. You take some time to get along, but once you take the decision, it's fast.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I think what I see as an opportunity with this is also that it sticks. It continues. But sometimes if you have top level decisions, you just bend over and wait to it blow over, and you have a new leader, and you can go back and do whatever you did before. So hopefully it sticks.
Also about the commitment, like the Japanese culture.
True. So what do you think? Some of you knew about Karolinska University Hospital. So how do you think that is viewed globally as a hospital today? Where would you find it? Would you find it among the 500 top or 100 top? Or do you know where it ranks today globally?
100 top.
100 top.
I didn't hear the question.
The Karolinska University Hospital, how is the ranking globally?
Oh, I think it's the first or among the But it is top 10. Yeah, I think
Yes, I
Top
think
10,
it's
yeah.
top
Top 10.
It's top 5.
Yeah.
Globally. The best in Europe. And I worked there for a couple of many years, and it was a huge transformation we went through. We changed the whole module, how you want to run a hospital. And that's challenging in that kind of environment. And it's also very close to the Karolinska Institute, which is a collaboration partner. So that's where you have a lot of the research that was going to clinics. So we changed the whole model. And that was also very much of a consensus model way, that we created this kind of oval tables where you put the different specialties from within the hospital, because you wanted to improve the speed and the quality of the patients within the system. But what we did, of course, at the time, we took away the whole clinical system. And so many of the staff, that have lived and built this kind of clinics, specialties clinics, in their whole career. So we had a huge resistance in some pockets of the organization for making this transformation to change. And the interesting thing is, people are not resisting change. They react because they're losing things. They're losing titles, they're losing a sense of power, they're losing the language sometimes. So it's the loss that creates the opposition for change. It's not a change itself. So if it's something I would do differently if I would be in this situation again, I would spend more time to understand what are they feeling that they would lose, and how can we compensate that in the new structure. So it was a lot of consensus, a lot of dialogue through the whole process of setting up this hospital. We recruited 850 new managers, new leaders to the hospital. We set up completely new building. And the hospital, you can't stop and we stop the business now because we want to change and transform. It doesn't work like that. You could for a few days or weeks, you could move around the patients.
I'm curious to ask you, how do you replace the people fired and hire new people, or just allocate them differently?
We hired and reallocated people. Yeah. And so, of course, many of the new leaders have had a leadership role before. Not everyone. And some came from other parts of Sweden, or sometimes from outside Sweden as well. Because we needed to have people that had the same vision, shared the vision of what we wanted to create with this new hospital. And it's a challenge. And of course, some left, and some went back to more clinical work or to research work.
When was this?
When were this? I left, how many years is it? That's a good question. Let's think back. 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
So it took 3 years, more or less, for like reaching the world best hospitals. And do you think this is because of the change?
The change have absolutely added value, absolutely, on how you run hospital. It's a more efficient hospital, but it's also how you change the whole system of running healthcare, especially in the Stockholm region and in Sweden. But it was a challenge, move into the change the structure, where you're leading, you change the operational model, and you move into new buildings. But the whole hospital, because we're at 2 basic locations. So we're building a lot of new things also in this other part of the hospital, but mainly the north one.
I'm just curious about the criteria for the ranking. Was it out of the employees' view or the patient's view?
I haven't done, I haven't deep dived in how they have selected it, but I'm sure it's about the quality of care that we're providing, the impact. So I think it's not medical criteria. I don't know how much of an employee impact they have looked at in these dimensions.
You mentioned that conscientious building could take time.
Yeah.
For a hospital, time is crucial.
Yeah.
How do you manage the urgency with this consensual building?
Well, you have operations, and then you have the change process and how you organize it. It's going parallel, but you always have to continue with operations in a technical education. They continue to flow in. And so it's a parallel process. So it requires, in a way, more resources, even if you're not given all the type of resources you need. So it's a juggle. And you really need high capacity leaders in the organization to be able to follow through. But it's also how do you set up the kind of dialogue, and you really need to involve people. And also in how to organize, how do you want to connect the hospital. So you have a lot of consensus building processes around it. And we have a very strong relationship how you set up the collaboration with the unions. It's very formalized, but it's really good most of the times. So you have a consensus dialogue with the union all the time when you do changes and transformations. Of course, in the end, it's the management to take the decision, but you always have a dialogue with the unions all the time. So it's a strength if you use it in the right way, and if you have good people representing the union. Sometimes they're not, but most of the time they're really good. But it's you need to take time, and it's not quick to push that. So consensus building, I think, if you look at it, it's a development journey. It's not a quick fix, and you need to build the buy-in and commitment. That's going to pave the way for the continuation I talked about. And one more personal, I think, reflection, from Malaysia's point of view, also, pick a job that you really love. Pick a job that you love. You really enjoy going to. Because then you will have the more energy also to manage the consensus perspective. And make sure that your team members are not coming to work every day. When you look at these global surveys about how people like going to job every day, what would you say about the percentage of people that really love their job in a global context?
20%.
Any other takes? 20%? I think spot on. It's 20%.
I saw that you had.
You already.
I promise I didn't see it before, but then I thought.
I saw it before, so I was like, she read it too.
Sorry, I spoiled it. No, but this is quite staggering that there's only 20% of really last go to job when it makes sense.
And why do they remain the job?
It's a good question, and I think.
You need to survive.
Yeah, you need to
Like,
No, but it's also the challenge of making the transition, making the change. Stepping out of the comfort zone. I think all changes and challenges is about stepping out of your comfort zone for your team. Step out of the comfort zone. It's quite comfortable, and you know what you have, but not what you get.
Yeah, it was actually like a Financial Times article yesterday published that said that you shouldn't work with what you love. You should work with what you're good at.
Exactly. I saw that as well.
Yeah, I'm basically arguing that you actually enjoy being successful more than enjoying your work for the entire life.
Probably.
So if you're successful at work, that criteria makes you more happy than enjoying your work.
And probably they go hand in hand, I guess,
I
because you
guess.
love what you're good at, and you're good at
Yeah.
what you love. So I think they. And I was thinking about that one thing that is important is to have self-knowledge. Know what are your talents, what are your values, that is the base, I think, for a lot of things.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, and I always emphasize that you need to work what you're good and great at. What is your natural strength? Because that's the thing that you will excel and that you usually will love doing. So the focus on your natural strength is what I always emphasize. So you can twist it and turn it into perspective, but I think for me it also combines what you're naturally good at, what you usually love, and enjoy to do.
if you have the value that what you love is success, you picking a job that you love to grow, you love success. If you love autonomy, it's still choosing what you love, but it's different than what we consider as a talent. Not as specific. Everything that you love is a talent. You don't have to be an artist to pick what you love. If you love money, that's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, true. Good. But also from a leadership perspective, when you talk about communication, it's like the recommendation: speak like you're right, but listen like you're wrong. So speak like you're right and confident, and listen like you're wrong. So taking in what people actually are thinking, really around. That's a really great idea. Sometimes we come in with we have a clear vision of how things should be done, or the reason of a problem, but we might not actually have caught the real core of the topic. And you can always use consensus to set up a fika session. With yourself.
But regarding the Tika session, now I've noticed like ever more the digital workplace is becoming and replacing the physical. You're also saying how important the physical space is, but like at my work, for instance, is all remote, or I can have that flexibility, and many choose to work from home. How do you maintain and keep these? I mean, it does get lonely when you're working from home, and you at some point you actually lose this social part. And how do you keep motivating people when it's through the screen, basically?
You have to work with it purposefully, because it will not just happen. What we did during the pandemic in Exxon, we had one-on-one walk and talk meeting, so we met up and walked outside. Sometimes we also walked in the group when the restrictions were a bit less imposed. We also had one-on-one team coffee over Teams. You sit with your coffee and you have a different conversation than you would have. It's not work related. It's about personal bonding, understanding that you focus on. But you need to schedule it. It will not happen by chance. So you need purposefully to create these circumstances, these opportunities. And of course, when you want to have planning days, when you want to be more innovative and creative, then you preferably want to get the people back here in the same room. Because that's the thing that at least we saw in Ericsson, that we're not as great as being innovative working remotely. Especially if you want to start up a project in the beginning, it's much better that if you meet physically. And then that remote. So trust and delegation, it also in a way links this F word links up together in a way. But it's empowering people to take the responsibility, to take the drive, to take the leadership. So you want your team to exercise their initiatives. You don't want to be able to control. That's ideal perspective. So you don't want to make the orders. But sometimes you need to find a balance on that. It's very much trust-based. It's really much about creating trust, but also having trust to let people let topics go or responsibilities go in the organization. But the idea behind it is that we think it will have more creative solutions in the end and higher level of engagement. So I will take one example. Spotify. Who does not have Spotify in their phone? You don't know.
Apple Music.
Works well. But Spotify, I think one of them is Swedish now. And Daniel Ek, who is the CEO, initially, when in the beginning of the company, he was quite active. He wanted to be part of the development meeting with the team, because he wanted to be able to be there, be where things happen. But he realized quite soon that he had a quite negative effect as the CEO, being part of the development meetings. It hampered, it restricted the development meeting instead of helping them. So he adopted what he embraces, what he says, the Scandinavian leadership model. And quoting him, he says, so with Spotify, there's the Scandinavian leadership model, where you delegate decision making. So in many ways, he sees that he's probably the least powerful person in Spotify, and probably the one who takes the least amount of decisions in organizations. That's his view. Many would say he's powerful anyway, because he's the CEO. But at least this is the philosophy that he tries to work according to. So he wants the responsibility of taking the decisions they have in mind out with the employees in the organization. The challenge with this dimension is, how do you act as leaders when you have a crisis? Do you still have the courage to have the responsibility to delegate it? Or do you bring it back? That's usually the main challenge as people say.
But I usually say freedom is good, but control is better. Not very Swedish, I know. But, in the end of the day, you are accountable.
Yeah.
So you can not just let it go. You need to control.
Yeah. No, that's a challenge. How do you find a good balance? Because you're as a CEO, ultimately you're always responsible towards the board, to the shareholders. Not get away from that. So he wants to see himself as a facilitator and entrusting the teams to actually take the decisions. That's the way he wants to run it, or how he is running it. But to step in and facilitate for them. But to be able to be there if they want to get his advice, or his point of view. But you want them to be the driver. So that you level out the decision making across the organization. And it's about empowering people, empowering teams.
But I think one example is what he did about the remote. He mentioned, we don't have kids in the company, so we're still going to keep it remote.
Yeah.
It's a facilitator.
Yeah. And you will attract and retain certain type of people in that kind of culture as well. I won't go through it, but this is, the Spotify perspective of takeaway from it. So I'll share it with you. But it's, circles around on what we actually are talking about here today. This I will also share with you if you want to, 7 powerful questions. And actually, the last one is one of the most powerful questions as a coach. I think you've been coaching, so and what else? It's one of the most powerful ones. Coaching, and what else? Because usually people will not say what they really think from the first question. You need to follow up. Some maybe it's often, not only once. So understand what's really going on. So opportunities. Trust and engagement from a leadership perspective. When you look at the coaching dimension, be curious a little bit longer. You don't need to be a coach as a leader. You can use the coach-like approach, but try to stay curious a little bit longer. Because what I do, I know it myself, I go into the advice giving mode too fast. And that's what most of us as leaders do. We go into giving advice too fast, instead of really having the endurance of trying to understand what's going on. And again, about your strength. Focus on your strength as leaders and make sure to focus on the strengths of people around you. Sometimes we have our brains tricks us. We were evaluated on some things that we're poor and not great and good at. So we just think, okay, then I would have a development plan for what I score 1 to 3 on a 10-grade scale. Don't do that. Stop doing that. Make sure that you have people around you that are good and great in the things that you're not really great at. And focus on your strength. It's always where you are strongest that you would actually excel and really be impactful for the organization and for itself. So trust and delegation, super powerful tool as leaders. Also for you yourself to think about what is the helpful behavior habits that you can have and work with to have more impact as a leader. And apply positive psychology. I have some slides for this. I'll send it to you as well. I'm sure many of you know about positive psychology. So the last area we'll cover today, the team first mentality, before we break for today, is in Sweden we prioritize teamwork. And we prioritize the team over the solo performance of an individual. Success is seen as collective achievements. And for example, the bonus system in Ericsson is mainly based on the team's effort, not an individual performance. More of the unit organization, part of the organization need to deliver. And leaders should promote the shared purpose. So making everyone feel important, depending on the role. And this goes around both individual rights as an individual but also about the collective goals. So it goes hand in hand. Can sound a bit contradictory, but it's really important. So it's really focusing on collaboration and high-level cooperation. That's the focus, because of team first mentality. So which company do you think I will use as an example when I talk before about the team first mentality? It's not on this board, but it's a big Swedish company.
IKEA,
Yes.
which unfortunately is not there yet.
Not yet. Not yet. We all are hoping that IKEA will come to Brazil, India. But it was actually already in the 80s. They had a huge crisis in IKEA. And it's part of it related to the Billy bookcase. Who have a Billy bookcase at home? I think most Swedes have in their time have owned a Billy bookcase. But the interesting thing, they, when they realized they had this kind of crisis, that came with logistics, production, making money and customer satisfaction. Instead of pointing to the senior leadership team to solve the crisis, they got together as employees, from factory workers to store managers, and they adopted the team first mentality. So they actually got together around coffee and cinema buns and had a brainstorming meeting together. I'm sure it was Brazilian coffee at the time. Because as you know, Swedes drink a lot of coffee. But it also sometimes it creates a kind of more relaxed atmosphere when you have the coffee and cinema buns in the meeting for the conversation. So instead of having a blame culture, looking at the failures and trying to find whose fault is this that we're not performing, they asked the designers, how can we make Billy even easier to produce and transport? They asked the factories, how can we reduce waste and increase the productivity? They checked the logistics, how can we pack the bookshelf to fit more in each truck? And it's a thing, so during this meeting, the young designer on a paper handkerchief wrote down a suggestion of how they can do it. So a simple napkin idea. And I thought the back part of the shop, could we fold it? Because that was a big part, the back side of the big shop. It's a big and difficult part. So they tried it out, ran tests in the production line, and they knew it was important. I did not take 9 months. And it was cheaper, easier to ship, and still as sturdy as ever before. So, that has staggering results, really saved them at the time. So the production cost dropped. They could fit many more bookcases in each truck. And the customers loved the price and availability, because they couldn't reach the availability as they wanted before. So it's about combining everyone's expertise and finding the solutions. And it's this kind of collaborativeness that's research strength, they call it togetherness. Let's turn this crisis into an opportunity that they really captured in a really good way. And they use it from the teamwork perspective. And that's also, if you want to create innovation, bring people with different competence and put them in the same room. That's what really creates innovation. It's not having a full room of human resource manager. Never be innovative enough. But you need to have people with different perspectives and competences. So create innovation. I think that's an example of how they use it very well. So, team first. This is something I practice as a board chair. One thing is, try to be the last one to talk in meetings as a leader. That's a challenging part, especially if you have a more hierarchical organization. But be the last one to talk. Experiment with that as a leader. Try it out. See how impact you will have. What ideas will come up? That will come up if you have it. And I also, as a board, I always challenge the board to try to have the meetings like the meetings of the meeting. So try to have the meetings as the meetings of the meeting. You understand that?
I do it.
So what usually happens? You have a meeting, and some things are said, but a lot of things are not brought up, not said. So people leave the meeting, and then they have to go behind the closed door and have a two-to-two discussion. What they really would like to have brought up in the meeting, but they never did. So you want to have the meeting as the meetings after the meeting. That was I always try to emphasize that when we have board meetings. I want to have the meetings as the meetings after the meetings.
But once you have a cohesive team where there is a trust, usually this happens automatically.
Exactly. It's a trust that's so important. And in many organizations, and research shows a focus on psychological safety within teams. They have the research by Amy and myself. And it's so impactful, and it shows really that creating a higher level of psychological safety really have this correspondence to high impact for teams and leaders. And never waste a good crisis. That's another example if you're part of the leadership. Never waste a good crisis. Every crisis have opportunities. Depends how you address it, how you take them on. A key example was a way of how they manage their crisis. This is a thing I will share it with you. So one of my last slides actually. I'm starting to look tired now, so I will not spend more time. But from to being high impact leader, there are things that you can bring in, from the Swedish perspective. But of course, you need to balance it with the kind of culture context that you are leading. But use the power of kindness, I think. It's a strong one to use as a leader. Pick a job that you love, but make sure that your team members have come to work. Utilize the opportunity of a coaching-like approach, but really try to stay curious a little bit longer. Creating a culture of high level of psychological safety, then you will have really great teams around you. Trust delegation, talk around. And sometimes the best idea starts with a simple fika and a napkin sketch. So for you also to think, what is the kind of support you might need in your leadership role to be able to drive success, to be an impact leader? And what will you pick up from today's session? So I think that was much my last slide. Thank you for listening for today. Any other kind of questions, reflections before we have some mingle time, I think more.
We do, and I think we can say goodbye to those watching online. 1 hour is perfect for online meeting, perfect timing. But we who are here can stay for some questions and have some coffee with David and continue the discussion. Thank you so much for the class. Fantastic. I really like the phrase, speak as you are right, listen as you are wrong. That's my key takeaway from this. That's fantastic. I like the translation too. What is the program called you're using?
It's PowerPoint.
Yeah,
It's normal PowerPoint to use.
that's
Already using AI.
It's perfect. Very good translation. So that's going to use that more.
I think we covered. Does someone feel that we missed out on your expectations of today?
I mean, maybe Sweden doesn't have any fails.
It's all perfect. All perfect. So bye to the people online. Bye. Have a good week. And a small gift to David, of course.
Thank you so much.
As pessoas